A single administrative decision regarding the genetic profile of a staple crop is currently threatening to rewire the global agricultural supply chain and ignite a trade war between North America's largest partners. Mexico's proposed ban on genetically modified corn imports has moved beyond a domestic policy debate into a high-stakes geopolitical confrontation. While the measure is framed as a defense of food sovereignty and biodiversity, the immediate stake is the stability of a multi-billion-dollar trade relationship. If fully implemented, the ban would force a massive reallocation of global trade, forcing Mexico to seek more expensive alternatives from France, Colombia, and Indonesia, while the U.S. would be forced to divert surplus exports to distant markets in Asia. This friction occurs against a backdrop of increasing environmental volatility, where the Mexican landscape is already struggling with a 5 to 8% decline in annual precipitation and an uptick in high-intensity hurricane activity. To understand the current tension over corn, one must look to the 12th century collapse of the Toltec Empire and the subsequent rise of the Aztecs, who unified central Mexico under the Nahuatl language and established a sophisticated agricultural hierarchy. This historical identity was deeply rooted in the land, a concept that became the primary engine of the 1910 Mexican Revolution. Leaders like Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa fought a bloody civil war against the dictatorship of Porfirio Diaz, specifically targeting land reform and the reclamation of indigenous resources. By the 20th century, under the long-standing rule of the Institutional Revolutionary Party, or PRI, Mexico moved into a centralized industrial state, eventually signing onto trade agreements that opened its borders to massive U.S. agricultural exports. This created a paradox. While the revolution secured the land for the people, the modern economy became dependent on foreign technology and genetically standardized crops, the very things the current administration seeks to roll back in a bid for biological conservation. The current state of Mexico is defined by a complex intersection of geography, climate risk, and shifting trade policy. Geologically, the country is anchored by the Transvolcanic Axis, a mountain range of smoldering cinder cones rich in silver, lead, and zinc, which forms the industrial backbone of the central states. However, this geography is under stress. Since 1985, the frequency of Category 5 hurricanes hitting Mexico has increased significantly, with major landfalls including Gilbert, Wilma, and Dean. Furthermore, the agricultural sector is battling the early development of coffee rust, a fungus worsened by climate change that threatens organic cultivars. Simultaneously, the security environment remains a critical factor. International criminal organizations increasingly exploit trade routes, occasionally using unsuspecting cross-border travelers to transport illicit goods via vehicle undercarriages. These logistical and environmental pressures are forcing a diversification of the economy, ranging from luxury real estate expansion in Cabo San Lucas to mission-driven educational investments in high-density indigenous zones like Oaxaca. The conflict over Mexico's future trajectory has split into two distinct, rationalized camps. On one side, the Mexican government and environmental advocates argue that a ban on GM corn is essential for protecting the genetic integrity of thousands of native maize varieties. Their objective is to preserve the country's evolutionary heritage and safeguard public health from potential long-term impacts of glyphosate-linked agriculture. They believe that returning to organic and non-GM methods is the only way to achieve true food sovereignty in a climate-unstable world. Conversely, the U.S. and global trade realists argue that the ban violates existing trade agreements like the USMCA. Their primary concern is market volatility. They predict that the move will result in higher food prices for Mexican consumers, significant losses for American farmers, and a disruption of the integrated North American supply chain. They view the ban as a non-scientific barrier to trade that ignores the efficiency and necessity of modern biotechnology in feeding a growing population. Moving forward, the resolution of this conflict will likely follow three logical steps. First, expect a series of formal legal challenges within the USMCA dispute settlement mechanism, which will determine the legality of Mexico's biotech restrictions. Second, Mexico will likely accelerate the diversification of its import sources, solidifying trade corridors with South American and European nations to mitigate the loss of U.S. supply. Finally, on the ground, the impact of climate change will require a rapid shift in agricultural technology. As precipitation declines in the Northwest, investment will move toward drought-resistant organic cultivars and improved water management systems. The future of Mexico will be a balancing act, maintaining its revolutionary commitment to land and heritage while navigating the unforgiving mechanics of global trade and a changing planet.